Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll just start with introductions. Ernie Camino.
Ernie Camino, Planning Board.
Barbara LaRue, Planning Board.
You know me, Brenda Rappaport.
Nick Priest, Chair of the Select Board.
Mike Espejo, Select Board.
Joe Moretti, Select Board. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Nice to meet you.
You too?
So we're just going to start off. I'll start with some questions. They'll start with some questions and go back and forth, and hopefully it won't be too torturous of 30 minutes in sit down. So if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Sure. Yeah, so I personally moved to Burlington at this point a little over 4.5 years ago. I originally grew up in upstate New York, but prior to moving to Burlington was in Medford. So I had mentioned in one of my questions, or one of the answers to the questions, how I grew up in a little town upstate New York, witnessed firsthand what it was kind of like when there really wasn't any future plans for the town, what happens when tragedy strikes. When Hurricane Irene went through the town just happened to have some work going on. We lived in the Mohawk River, on the river, completely decimated the town, and there was really no contingency plans for how to kind of rebuild the town. So, when I decided that, okay, we are going to find a place we can settle and live forever, I knew that I was going to want to get involved in the town, because it's not just about me at this point. I have 2 young kids. It's their future, it's their legacy. We were lucky enough to settle in Burlington, where my husband was not born, but pretty darn close. I think he was only a couple years old when they moved here, and his in-laws are still here, and I've been lucky enough to know my in-laws for 16 years. So I have known this town for quite some time, and have really seen it transform over those 16 years. So, I think, and I mentioned in my answers, it's really at this pivotal point, I believe, where we've seen some pretty substantial growth, a lot of interest the last 5 to 10 years, especially as surrounding towns have continued to get more pricey. And with that, there's also the question of, well, how do we make the future of the town successful to continue to draw people in? And that really ties professionally to what I do. So I have been in business my entire career. I went to business school, I went to Bentley. That's how I ended up out here and how I met my husband. So and I always knew entering school that I was going to do business. I always had a business mind. Both my parents were in business. And my daily job is planning. It's really trying to dissect and figure out, what do our customers need? What do the trends look like? What's happening in the macro environment? What's happening in our micro environment? And I actually this month, they asked me to step in for our VP of marketing, because they wanted me to, she unfortunately had to go on short-term leave, and they wanted me to help continue to grow for the business. So the past month I've been managing on a monthly basis. It's about $13 to $15 million on a monthly basis for the budget. Really trying to figure out, where's the business going to go. I work at Care.com currently, and with that business we have 2 arms. There's the arm of really the brand, it's built sustainability, and then I'm in charge of what they call emerging business, where they really want to figure out, where are we going to go from here? What does the future look like?
What's the name of the company again?
Care.com.
Care.com.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's an online site where you can find sitters, nannies, help for seniors, housekeeping, pet care. I've been there for a little over a year. Prior to that, I was at CVS Health, which Fortune 4 company, big company. And although I have not held a prior seat in politics, I can tell you, you can learn a lot about politics in a Fortune 4 company, especially during COVID and in the healthcare industry. So I definitely understand what it takes to know when you have to push, when you have to pull back, knowing when it's not about you, it's about what needs to happen, and really being able to come to a consensus. Because in all of my roles, I've been in a position where I have to unite various teams. When I joined Care.com, they did not have a single place for folks to communicate together, to come up with a plan together, to figure out, what are we going to do to make sure we're very cohesive. And that's something that has been the main part of my role, is really bringing together the different teams at the company, beyond just marketing. And so I would say, lastly, another big reason why I'm interested is because I like a challenge. I like to be busy. My husband sometimes questions my sanity, but he's also very supportive in knowing that I can't sit idle.
Great. Thank you. Nick?
To me,
To you.
wonderful. Jessica, thanks for making the time to be here tonight. And congratulations on the interim role. That's a huge, I mean,
I didn't ask for it, so blessing,
Hey.
I don't know, but.
the confidence that you've clearly inspired,
Yeah.
you know, I also work in marketing, so I completely understand. I agree. I think Burlington as it is at a very unique inflection point. I kind of want to ask two-part question. One, what do you see as the most immediate needs in terms of a planning perspective? And then two, I liked how you talked about making sure we remain successful. So from a planning perspective, how would you define success?
Sure. So your first question around immediate needs, that one's a tricky one because similar to what I've learned in my career, I would assume it's the same here where one thing has a snowball effect. There's an impact to everything. So I think at this point it's obvious across the board, it's not just Burlington, housing prices are pretty crazy. You can't buy land there's a couple plots, but questionable. And well, there's 2 for sale right now. We did look at them, but I would have to go to the end of the street to get my mail, and I was like, I don't think so. So that's a big issue. With that too, I think there's the question of, I know there was recent hearings around what to do with the piano site and how, one of the conversations was around, a certain type of housing, and obviously with that, it's a consideration of, well, what does this do for our schools? I know, obviously, there's school committee is a different committee, but there's a lot of questions around what do we do there, how do we prepare for the future of the success, continue to draw in talent that we need, because, the school system is really good, but obviously we're also competing with towns around us that have equally stellar school systems, so how do we continue to draw in also the talent there? There's obviously, there was recently a very terrifying accident, 2 women crossing the street. We all know walkability is really into question with this town. So I think that also goes hand in hand with drawing interest here. And then there's just with a big part of the town being business oriented, how do we balance the look and the feel and the growth of business and people who live here? Because obviously a lot of people want to live here because taxes are nice and low, because these businesses, these restaurants are helping pay for that. So what is that delicate balance where you start to kind of steer away some of the residents? So I think those are all pressing issues. I would say the most immediate one I would think is that balance of the last thing I said, because obviously we want to continue to attract businesses, but how do you do so where with the influx of people, you're doing so safely for the residents from all those other aspects? Prior to COVID, I used to say Burlington has a rush hour. There's Burlington rush hour, where you would legitimately get stuck trying to go anywhere from 4 to 6 p.m. And obviously it's not as crazy, but there still is that question for how do I safely get around the town and do so in a means that I need to, if we're continuing to draw those businesses. In terms of your question about future success, I think it's all of that all-encompassing. A lot of what people will look at for a town, especially a town in the suburbs, is schools. How are schools doing? What's the ratio of teachers? What do I have available in that town? So continuing to obviously maintain, I can get everything in this town. I really don't have to go anywhere to get anything that I need. So how do we continue to maintain that, continue to grow the business interest? And honestly at this point, I think I'd also ask, I don't know if y'all have put out and asked the residents themselves, what does the future of success look like here? I know that there's obviously the master plan document in terms of what we want it to be, and so that's definitely a guiding post, but I think, especially in my job, what I've learned is you can get really the best inspiration from the people who live here.
Thank you.
Barbara?
Well, I actually learned something from our last interview process. Ernie asked the same question of each person, and I thought, that's what I should do. So that's what I'm going to do. One of the concerns that I have about this is that whoever gets this position is going to be starting in about 2 weeks. And there's a lot to learn to get on board. So my question is, have you thought at all about what you might need to do in order to get up and running, and what do you think you will be doing in the 2 weeks between now and the first meeting to prepare yourself?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I have, watched the most recent, although I haven't been able to watch them live, I have played back on the BCAT government YouTube page the past meetings so that I know, what is on the most recent docket. I had seen a couple of the select board ones as well. So obviously I'm making sure I've caught all that I can, because I know some of the topics have gone very far back. I would say for me, the biggest gap is the overall procedure of the meetings, and understanding kind of how that interplay works between all of the planning board members. That's something that I feel like I could easily just have a conversation with folks. Obviously observing, you learn a lot, but I think there's a conversation to be had. And I also am, it's just the nature of who I am. I am that person that needs to understand how the sausage is made. So I certainly will be, and have already begun to dig into, well, how do other towns do it? How does our town do it? What are, the general understandings of what the responsibilities are here versus, what my expectations might be. And, I was planning to, and if I don't, get the seat, still planning to run in April. So I did actually a couple months ago join runforsomething.org. So that is something too that
Is that like a real website, Run for Something?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and it's really, it's really to build up the young Democrats who are interested in running for some type of office. There's literally an age limit, like I think you have to be under 40, I don't remember.
She should run only for everybody.
Yes, exactly, and they provide free resources, they have webinars, you can talk directly with people, so I have been really kind of diving into their resources and really understanding across the board, because I've been asking myself honestly the last year, what is my role in the town? And it was something I really want to be able to marry what I do every day, all day to. But obviously this would also be a passion project, just knowing this is my children's future. And so I've been doing the research, and it really feels like, from my professional experience, this is really what suits me.
Thank you.
Mike?
I love that you're going to run either way. That's awesome. That's great. That's really, because we always need good candidates, and that's really nice to hear. So our planning board is 7 members, and as you know in life, it's tough to get 2 people to agree with on anything. And everyone has their own styles and opinions and visions. How do you work in a group setting, and how do you work with people who disagree with you and people who agree with you, and in maybe your past work history or even personal history? How have you done in group settings and collaborative settings and situations like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in any job I've taken, the number one request I've always had is that I get to work with a wide array of people. Marketing, product, finance, we never speak the same language. We all have, even me, and now that I'm dealing with the CEO, my CFO, all of the other executives, we do not always see eye to eye. It's something on every single day I'm having to deal with, and obviously, there's always opinions that come into play. Obviously, your own personal experience shapes your opinions, but at the end of the day, I lead with facts, combine it with experience, and I have a pretty good gut reaction. I've also, the last couple of years, done a lot of growth on reading books about how you adjust what you say to different personalities, because people are who they are. You cannot change them. It's how you address what they need as well as what you need in a way that can be well understood. Still, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you're all going to come to the same consensus. And I think that's where only experience can come into play, knowing like when to back off and when you really need to push. And I think being very open about that, which I'm an extremely transparent person, where I might say, I'm going to feel very strongly about this topic. This is something that I don't see myself being able to flex on. How can we kind of find a middle ground? Is how I would approach it. Versus other areas I might say, look, I don't feel as strongly or as passionately about this, so I think there's an opportunity for me to kind of let my thoughts and opinions go to the side.
Thank you.
Ernie?
She stole your question.
Almost, no. No, actually, this time I'm going to do it a little bit different, I think, because I also came from a business background, small business background, but, and what I saw when I got involved in town government many, many years ago was a frustration between how it gets done in the public sector and how it gets done in the municipal world. How would you handle that? I mean, for instance, you may have the right answer to the question. You may even convince a few of your other planning board members or whatever, but the process can take very long. It's not, it's, how would you, have you thought about that at all? Or how would you?
I have. I mean, I think luckily the experience at CVS Health taught me about a lot of red tape and a lot of very strict processes that you have to follow. Nothing can happen, honestly, overnight, especially when you're beholden to the public. And, you know, you're beholden to very strict regulations and processes that you cannot get around. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. I think there's always a way to figure out, okay, how can I take this and not let it be a frustration and just understand that this is what it is and it can't be changed. I think that's something that you deal with in life all the time. There are things that are out of your control, and I think it's going to be situational, but I think that's also what the other planning board members are for, is to really kind of understand, well, why can't this be changed? Why does it have to be done the way it is? And if the answer is because and there's no flexibility, then it is what it is. If there's an opportunity to change it, I will always find a way to change it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. My only question I have is the time commitment. People on the board, we put in, whether it's the select board or the planning board, there's a lot of time. It's not just the 2 nights a month you meet. It's all the other stuff that goes along with it. It's the phone calls, it's the emails, it's the messages that go back and forth. How would you go about doing that and taking care of work and everything else? Just like we do, I assume, but I'd like to hear it anyway.
I'm lucky that I work from home, and even though a lot of my time between 9 and 5, I have meetings. It does allow me flexibility to also maintain life outside of work. So in terms of, the management side of like, well, how would you also fit this into your life? I think I wouldn't be here having a conversation with you if I didn't feel like I had time to fill. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, and it's on the record that I'm saying I have time to fill when I have 2 young kids. But I am very, very lucky. I have, like I said, already an extremely supportive husband. I have family nearby in Burlington and Billerica that I know I'm very good at prioritizing and making sure that I get things done when they need to get done. It's in me as a mom where I'm always thinking and calculating 10 hours in the future. So how am I going to fill this in? And it's obviously all about setting time aside. I often do work 8 p.m. and later when work, whether it's personal or if it would be for this, after 8 p.m. I'm always doing those sorts of things. And during the day, it's pretty easily and flexible to fit things in.
Thank you.
Great. I mean, I have 2. He has 4. And we're still doing it. We're making it happen. Just throwing that out there. For those who are watching, I just want to state for the record that, when we did have an opening, that you did apply last time. So, I appreciate your tenacity and coming back, and I also appreciate the fact that you stated that you are going to run regardless of whether or not you get this role. I mean, that to me speaks volumes. Are there any questions that you haven't or that we haven't answered, or that any questions that you may have for us at this time?
I guess, especially knowing that obviously at some point everyone was new, what is the biggest obstacle that someone who is new to this process faces when they start?
Go for it.
I can tell you what I found to be the biggest obstacle when I started. I had done other things in Burlington government, so I had that knowledge about how things work and the processes and all of that. But for me, the biggest part, the thing that took the longest for me to learn was learning the legal part of this, the bylaws, how to interpret them, how to apply them, what you can and can't do legally, and that's really important, and that takes time to learn.
Sure.
I think also with that though, we do have staff that supports
Yes.
you, so if you're, when you get, in the beginning of the week, you're gonna get a document that's gonna say, these are the things, or, this person would get a document that says, these are the things that we're gonna be discussing, and, that's what the other planning board members are here for, to discuss, and if you're already, reviewing other meetings beforehand, you can obviously get an idea of kind of what's transpired. And, again, staff is always available, and even select board members, can always help in something if there was ever any confusion. So I think
Yeah,
that's,
we do have a very good and
We do.
very knowledgeable staff.
Awesome.
And you can read the bylaw. It's deadly dull, but you can read it.
Yes, I know. I do know it's online, and shockingly, the legal aspect is the thing that doesn't scare me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
for me, I think it was, I was on town meeting, I was on zoning board of appeals, and then coming onto planning board, I think it was still just trying to realize who's going to be contacting you for what. You see the phone, you see the name, what's coming next, and just kind of understanding, what everybody's passion is, so as you had said, there's some things that you can say, okay, I'm headstrong on this, and there's other things that, may or may, you could bypass.
Yeah.
I think for me, the legalese and the bylaws, I come from a contract background, so that was easy for me. Procedural, again, simple conversation. But I think it was just really understanding kind of who's who in the community.
Sure.
But that's kind of the fun of it too.
Yeah.
Because you get to know people and you learn, and you're going to have there's always a different personality type and a different passion for, each member of the community. And I think it's just great to learn and experience that about others. So, anyone else?
One thing I will say, I only did 9 months on the zoning board, and the planning board is my first real elected position. And I was a lot of watching the meetings and a lot of reading, and staff is also very helpful. But you also have, 5 of the 6 members on the board are very experienced.
Yeah.
You have 5 great resources there that you can always bounce things off and say, hey, what happened in the meeting when this, I didn't understand, can you kind of, and they're all great about helping you out and bringing you along. So that would help me.
I think
So who's the sixth one? Who's
I
the
was just
sixth
gonna
one?
say.
Who's the dud?
Oh, the new,
Am I the shaky?
she's new, experienced.
I meant there's 6 others besides her. I was teasing you.
I was like, I didn't mean anything bad. I said 5 super experienced, very experienced members,
Teasing you.
and a brand new one.
Keep digging, just keep shoving.
I'll be quiet. I'll see myself out.
I would say as somebody who's also spent time at larger organizations, experiencing red tape in the private sector, red tape in the government area is way worse. Just like honestly, like you think you get it, you don't.
Yeah.
It is longer. It is more arduous. It is more confusing.
And sometimes it's not a reason for it either.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Sometimes there is
that's
not a
the
reason.
big
Yeah.
frustration.
So I think like tempering expectations and having patience is really important.
Yeah.
Because what you could normally get done in a year or 2 years during the day at 9 to 5 is going to take you an entire term, if not longer, to accomplish, here. Some things happen quick. You take the small wins.
Yeah.
But other things just buckle up. You gotta be patient.
Absolutely.
That's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Do you have any other questions for us?
I don't. I think that was my biggest one. Yeah. Great.
Well, again, thank you very much for coming in, and we will be in touch.
All right.
Nice to see
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Any door. There's so many to choose from.
We're using this chair right here, Chris, so your face gets on WebEx. Or all of you gets on WebEx, actually.
How's everybody doing?
Good,
Hi, how are you?
Good.
If you would kindly introduce yourself and state your name for the folks at home.
My name is Chris Hartling. I live at 1 Colleen Circle in Burlington.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the planning board?
I've lived in Burlington for 53 years, have a wife, 2 kids. Kids went through the school system, I went through the school system. Currently a 911 civilian dispatcher. Was a current member of town meeting. I've been on town meeting on and off for about 20 years, 3 budget cycles on Ways and Means, Board of Selectmen 6 years, 2 years as chair. During that time, I served on as the vice chair of the Master Plan Steering Committee. I was also on the Town Center, or the 3A subcommittee, while I was on the Board of Selectmen. I'm sorry, was the second part of the question why I want to be on the
Yes.
planning board?
Yes,
So,
thank you.
planning board to me, probably right now with the way things are, all due respect to you 3 guys, I would say planning board probably is one of the more, if not the most important vehicle of town government right now. I think part of the reason that we all enjoy reasonable taxes compared to cities around us, and why we have such a high level of service, and why we have a robust business community, is because of the work that's been done by people that have been on the planning board since it existed. For example, deciding what parts that everything close to 128 was going to be zoned as it is. Anyway, so much good work has been done. Good work's being done now, and I would like to be more involved in planning for the future of the town that I do plan to live in for a while longer. So,
Great,
yeah.
thank you. Nick?
So Chris, I decided to ask a 2-part question to each of the candidates. The first is, what do you see as the most immediate needs facing the town that the planning board can help resolve? And then the second part is, and I think this kind of goes back to, what you were saying around the planning that was done prior, through the generations, as well as the way that, the business structure is for taxes. How do we measure success for the town moving forward?
So the second part of the question, how do we measure success? To me, I guess I would say how I measure success, maybe not how everybody does. I measure success by 2 things. A, what my tax bill looks like, and B, or 1A, what the vibe is. When I go to my kids' or one of my nieces or nephew's game, or if I go to something at the Common, or if I bump into somebody at Wegmans, or if we get together at a Christmas party, I pay particular attention to, always have, how people feel about living here. When I bump into the people that I used to work with more hands-on, when I participated in other facets of town government, if I run into somebody who's a commercial taxpayer or runs a business in Burlington, whether they own the business or not, or people that advocate for people who run businesses. Somebody who I used to talk to a lot and I consider a friend, and I consider somebody that really has their finger on the pulse of the business community, is Rick Parker. So like what my sister-in-law who lives on Beaverbrook says about how she likes living in Burlington. I love this, I love this. Geez, why can't we do more of that? Or somebody like Rick would say, well, you know, we did this for larger businesses. We need to make sure that that Paula can continue to pay her rent where she is. I think I pay attention to A, what I'm paying to live here, what I'm getting for that. But more importantly, I kind of take it personal when somebody complains or doesn't like something about the town. I would imagine you can identify with that. Just because you and I have lived here for about the same period of time, likely longer than anybody else here. You know, I know you grew up in town, so I kind of take it personal when somebody isn't happy about being here. Most important thing would be to me to get a, I don't know, I kind of place a lot of importance on food and what I drink with the food. And so like places downtown and smaller in scale to what we have, that would be something that I would complain about, being somebody that likes to eat and drink. So I think there's a lot to be done. I think we do a lot of things right. I think we could do some things better. And I think I would like to be proactive instead of reactive. I'd like to be innovative about what we do and not so much reactive to what other towns and communities do. Kind of a long answer, I apologize.
No, that was great, thank you.
Great.
Barbara.
Hi. So if you are successful in seeking this position, you're going to be starting on planning board very soon, in a little over 2 weeks. So there's a lot to do to get on board. Have you thought at all about that, and what do you intend to do to prepare yourself to start and hit the ground running?
So in advance of a potential first meeting, I guess the two things that I would pay attention to specifically would be who works in the planning department, what the planning department's mission statement is, what each person's responsibilities and job description is. The next thing I would kind of focus on is what is the role of the planning board by definition? Not so much what I think it is or what somebody says it is, but in our town charter, I would pay particular attention to exactly what the role of the planning board is so that I could kind of shape what my focus would be. I would then probably look at recent past meetings, just to sort of get a sense for what you guys are working on currently. I do sort of plug in here and there. I wouldn't say that I've watched every minute of every meeting, you know, but I think I'm kind of
I feel
big on.
sad if you did.
What's that? Yeah. No, I'm kind of, honestly, Barbara, I'm kind of a preparation person. I have the time to do that. I take it personal when somebody comes unprepared to something that I'm involved in. So I think, with no other way to say it, I guess I would just get some definition around what the job entails and then work on current events and what's going on now. I do think also I'm lucky in that I have relationships with people that have been on this board in the past. And I've got a lot of good relationships with people who have interaction with the planning board. And while you can't go by what people say, I think it's always good to, the more information you have to process, I think is better, you know, which is the nature of the job, it seems like, you know.
Mike.
Thank you. Hi, Chris, how you doing?
Good, Mike.
Everyone knows you have a long and a lot of experience in our town government, you know, how everything works. How would you use that to your advantage if you were selected to be, as a new planning board member? How would you leverage that experience and knowledge of how town government works to get up to speed quickly and as your role as a planning board member?
So I think, so how do I say this tactfully? I think I'm big on you learn from mistakes, right? So in my experience, I've learned what works in a group setting, what doesn't work in a group setting. So to me, when you say experience, I think the biggest thing is placing rationale and common sense ahead of emotion, right? So the biggest thing to me with experience is you have to do a couple things. You have to hear everyone, not just hear them, but you have to listen to them, right? So even if you disagree with somebody, you have to hear what they say, you have to listen to what they say, and you have to process it, and you have to recognize that, gee, maybe this person might know what they're talking about. I would say the experience of having been on boards in the past and being able to look back at things, to me, that's been about, geez, I wish I could have done that better, and I'll do that better next time. And geez, I should have been a little more open, or I wish I did a little more listening than talking in that situation. So I guess the way I would use my experience is simply be open to the idea that somebody may be smarter than me, and somebody who's been through a situation might have something to offer, even if their opinion differs from mine. I guess that said, Mike, I'd be honest with you, it wouldn't seem to me that experience is a big thing with this. And I say that having gone through the process before recently. So to me, it would seem that you guys are looking for who you feel will do the best job, and not so much who has the most experience, I guess, as valuable as I think experience can be. So, and I'm not telling you that, that's just my feel for, you know, what happened last time you went through this process, and you know, where things might go now, so.
Thank you.
Ernie?
Again?
Yeah, you again. You're gonna do this a couple more times, you know.
You're still on this board, Ernie?
Well, I slept here last night. Same seat.
Yeah.
I'm trying to ask all the candidates the same question, and your situation is a little bit different since you're currently working for the municipality.
Yeah.
So my question was, but I know you've also worked in the private sector.
Sure.
And run a small business yourself, correct? Okay, so how do you deal with the frustration between getting things done in a government or municipal setting and getting things done in a private setting?
I think over-communicate probably would be.
Over-communicate?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think, so it's a partnership, right? When you own a business, you have, you're in business, you're in partnership with your clients, you're in business with the guy who rents you the space, you're in business with whoever sends you the tax bill, you're in business with your accountant. It's when you're in a business or when you're in a private setting, I think there's a little bit more of, okay, I have to really look at this thing holistically. Whereas I think when you're in a public job, I think you're able to just sort of hone in on, this is my job and that person's doing their job. So I think for me, when I operated my own retail business, or when I worked at the software company I was at a couple of years ago, I think for me it was just about over-communication, Ernie. I think over-communicating about what I had to offer, over-communicating about asking questions that I needed to know the answers to in order to be successful, over-communicating my needs to my landlord, over-communicating my value to my clients. I guess for me, Ernie, it's if you have a rapport with somebody, you can generally work through or work around whatever differences you might have. So I guess for me, it's just about trying to be on the same page with as many people as possible.
Can I
Of course,
follow up
of
on
course.
that? Okay, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
a part of my question, the main part of my question was, getting things done in a municipality as opposed to getting things done in the private sector.
Oh,
The
okay.
frustration of, I know this is the right way to do it, and I know this is correct, but boy, I can't get anything.
So I would answer that two ways. I'd go back to something I already said, that just because I may be resolute in my belief that what I think is absolutely right, I do have to kind of account for the fact that maybe maybe I might have some room for growth. So I think you have to be open to compromise. I think you have to be open to the fact that somebody else may have something to offer, and you have to listen to and hear that person. And then I think once you've processed all that information and built as many relationships as you can, I think it's just hard work, and you just have to keep going at it. And you have to not stop until somebody has figured something out that's for the greater good, which I guess is another part of the question. Recognizing what's good for all of the stakeholders, and maybe being open to the idea that if two things are crashing into each other, everybody's got to be open to the idea that there's a compromise. Red Sox made a trade yesterday, and I think what they always say about trades is a good trade is when everybody's kind of happy, but nobody really feels really good about it. Everybody sometimes has to kind of walk away feeling like, all right, I got this, I got that, but I had to give on this, I had to give on that. I guess that's how you deal with the frustration, I think, is just keep the vision that it's about the common good, and be prepared to compromise if you have to. Unless you absolutely believe something, in which case you just have to dig in, and there's not a better word than fight, I guess, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Persevere.
Huh?
Dig-
Persevere, yeah, that would have been a better. See, yeah.
Again?
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Chris.
Hi.
My question really isn't going to come up. I already know. I've sat on the boards with you. I've watched what you've done as far as time commitment goes. That's my biggest thing. This board is just like ours. There's a lot of time involved besides the couple hours you meet every night, or the 2 nights a month that you meet. So my question to you, I already know the answer, but for the rest of the board, your time commitment as far as it's all the stuff behind the scenes that the residents don't see, and that the other people in town, no one sees it. So that's my biggest question. And I personally know the answer because I sat on a board with you, and I know how much involved you are. So this is more for the public, anybody out there watching, or this particular board here.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Joe, and it's probably a good question for people to digest, because I know that if you get caught up in, geez, nobody appreciates my time, it can be a pretty frustrating endeavor, right? And nobody does this for the accolades. I think for me, Joe,
We
it's...
do it for the money, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you do it for the money. I think, Joe, it's for me, to manage the time and to fit it all in. I think what a lot of other people do is I compartmentalize things. So I have areas of my life and my time where I'm not needed by my job. Let me stop myself. I'm not needed by my family, and I'm not needed by my job. Somehow I was able to be prepared and be on committees and boards, and be parts of things while I had kids in kids' activities, while I've undergone renovations on my house, while I've worked multiple jobs. I think the way you prepare and the way you fit this in, what I would imagine the 6 of you do, is you have to kind of compartmentalize, and maybe the sacrifice that you make, the biggest one, is on your own personal time. So instead of going down to the range and hitting a bucket of balls, instead of sleeping in, instead of going to a coffee shop and actually having a cup of coffee and just sort of sitting there and vegging out, that's when you can do the work, is during those quiet times when you're not needed by somebody more important. Because for all of us, this falls behind family and job, you know? So I hope I answered the question you were asking. Okay, okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
Just one more quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
If you were not chosen in this round,
Uh-huh.
would you run for election in April?
I don't know.
Are there any questions that you have for us?
In the event that anybody wanted to, and first of all, I appreciate you giving me the time, and I appreciate the questions.
Thank you for coming in.
And, you know, whatever consideration you guys extend. I know you mentioned in your email you have a lot of candidates, that's good. I did this once before, it was recently, if these guys wanted to see that, is that available somewhere? Okay, so
Of course it is.
my last interview had, and it was,
It was public.
yeah, so there were different questions asked, and
Sure.
if that helped you guys, I think, as Barbara said earlier, I might feel a little bad for you if you did actually request that and pay attention to it. But anyway, all seriousness, I was just curious if that was available to these guys.
Yep, it's available to anyone.
Yeah, and the other question I have about the process itself is, you're interviewing X number of clients at this point in half-hour intervals tonight.
Correct.
You mentioned in your email, Barbara, that whatever candidate or candidates are chosen from this round, let's say everybody warrants a discussion in front of the entirety of the boards. What is it? You're going to bring somebody or candidate or candidates forward on Monday.
On Monday, August 15th, not next Monday.
Yeah, the 15th.
Yeah, the next select.
That wasn't a typo, that you may potentially bring multiple people to that meeting, right?
Right, I mean, the two chairs have worked out a process.
Yeah.
Do you want me to review that, or?
No, I got it from your email, I'm just making sure I read it right, that you guys may actually bring multiples, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Great. There is another member of our board. Bill, I don't see your hand up, but I just want to just acknowledge you and see if there is anything that you would like to add, or if you have any questions.
No, I'm comfortable with the subcommittee is doing. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I have one quick question.
Sure,
which
of course.
I think
We
I
have
know
plenty
the
of time.
answer to, but I think we probably should ask all the candidates this. You understand, of course, that this appointment is just until next April?
Oh, yeah.
So you would be expected to draw papers and run for election next January to April timeframe, and are you prepared to do that?
That's the plan right now, yeah.
Thank you.
You already have competition because
What's that?
the previous speaker
Yeah,
said she's running whether she's on the board or
yeah.
not. So
No, that's good, I think you guys would all agree
You know what?
that that's
I
good.
think if
I think that's
we have a
great.
lot of uncontested seats, and I think it would be wonderful
Yep.
to get, more folks involved in the community. I mean, I think it's great,
I'm glad you didn't say younger there, I appreciate that.
I'm not an ageist. I have no qualms about age, what I do think, and again, I think, each age group has a different perspective about, what they think is important. You want small restaurants, somebody else may want, more playgrounds. I mean, it varies, so, I just think it's great that we're gonna have folks who are gonna keep coming back, and I appreciate that. Is there anything else that, no? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
How you doing?
We'll start with some introductions. My name is Brenda Rappaport. I'm the chair of the planning board.
Nick Priest, Chair of the Select Board.
Ernie Covino, planning board member.
Barbara LaRue, planning board member.
Mike Espejo, planning board member. Select board member. Sorry,
Former planning board.
select board member.
Illusions of grandeur.
I was feeling comfortable again.
Joe Morandi, planning board. I just want to be like you. I'm on the select board.
Select board down the end.
I guess you have seen my name, Ali Aklima. I guess I'm here to interview to see, I know something about planning board, but so I thought I'd get some better understanding what really responsibilities are, and I answer any question you may have.
So why are you, I guess I'll start. Why are you seeking interest in the planning board? Where is it stemming from?
Basically, I'm living in Burlington for more than 35 years. And I really never had enough time to be volunteer for doing, that was last week, I was in the daily news, I read one of them is local news. Local news was one ad that was saying planning board, interviewing or looking for them. So that may be a time that I can spend some of my time to volunteer for the better wing of the city, which I'm living at 35 years. So it's long enough, I have used it. Now is the time to pay back. That's the main reason.
Sure. Can you tell us a little bit about, your background and who you are as an individual and what you've been doing the past 35 years?
I don't know, you may have seen because people, you can LinkedIn, you can look at all the whole
Well,
history.
we have folks that are watching as well.
Oh,
and
okay.
This is a public meeting, so, while we have the application that you've submitted, folks at home.
Okay.
If you could share that with all of us.
Basically, my background is two things. Educational background, I'm from mechanical engineering, nuclear engineering, computational fluid mechanics. So in general, I have had from 3 years to my PhD. So that is the overall. As far as the life work experience, I have worked in so-called civil engineering and even to some degree environmental, depending on the nuclear engineering, then moved to computer science and software engineering. Then the last 10 years, I'm what's being called genomic data analytics. My main work is the research in the area of the genomic and the cancer research and healthcare. In general, healthcare combination, life sciences, healthcare, and cancer research. That's the last 10, 15 years in general. And my thought, why I thought for the planning board, because I assume that the only way to make a community better, to have better planning for the long-term plan. And I'm assuming in Burlington you have 30 or 50 years long-term planning it. And contributing to it, if you have the right plan, not only you can get support from local, state, and federal, you can actually get budget and from the individual companies that you're using it. So it is wide open if the long-term vision for it all. That's basically I'm thinking that I can put my experience, understanding in the industry and other place I have, or work I'm in right now, in helping the city become a better place. Just like other people have done. The guy was 50 years working in this, I was amazing. Somebody spent 50 years of their life. There's a very noble things to do.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping I can spend a few years at least of my time.
Understood. So we do have a thing called a master plan, which does kind of dictate, what the foresight of what the community will look like in the future. So that's definitely something that you may want to take a look at some point. I will pass the torch to you, sir.
Thank you. So I've been asking a two-part question, because I think planning as a function serves two very distinct roles, right? What's happening in front of us right now, and then what can be happening, like you said, over the course of the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So from your perspective, having lived here since 1987, what do you think are Burlington's most immediate needs? And then long-term, I love that you have an engineering background, so I'm very curious to hear your response to this. How do you measure success?
Okay. To me, short-term planning, even immediate planning, if does not have any impact on long-term vision, either the long-term vision is wrong, is missing something, but the long-term vision is not cast in stone. If at any time you find out there is some project that has to be done, doesn't contribute to that long-term vision has to get corrected. Something is missing. You cannot have immediate need. It doesn't satisfy anything in long-term vision. So one of them has an issue with it. So long-term vision is the one that I use as a reference of looking at any project. Any project, long-term vision is the goal. But at the same token, is not basically built in stone. I mean, at any time, it's a living document, but you have to change it as the time passes. And it shouldn't be difficult to change it either, because if you make it such a lengthy process to make it any modification of that somebody have decided 5, 10 years ago, for something happened 30 years from now, you need so many meetings going through it to making it. It's almost impossible. It's not value in it either. The same thing we do if you look at it in the industry. Yes, any company when they come in, they have the vision. Everybody wants to become Microsoft or Google of the world. They want to be. Nothing wrong about it. But at the same time, they adjust it based on the project comes in. Now, if you ask me what's the Burlington needs to do, to me, there's a few different things. One, when I'm looking at it, not only Burlington, any other town, we are moving toward the environmental-wise, toward the technologies available today, which we can make as far as the so-called power industry technology, how everybody, we have to have the planning. Basically, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it is renewable energy everywhere. And not only we saying it, we create the way that the house, the new house building, or the existing one can use those features that make it easier. The one things I had 2 years ago, is the PFAS stuff comes out. I called the town and the water department. I was very disappointed from their answer. Oh yeah, we have heard about it. I said, what's the timeline? We are going to do it. What is your timeline? You are telling me, we don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2, we are going to have a meeting about it. You cannot have such important things. And then asking, and what is your immediate need? Oh yeah, there is a list. You can look at these lists, or you can look at the website. There's so many people living in this town, they're elderly. They may not be able to do research and find out what, if you look at the buying bottled water, half the bottled water have the PFAS in it. And the people don't know about it. So it's a minimum the town can do, a step further than that. Not only find out who has it and where they can buy it, they can ask for them the contract, long-term citywide contract, we sell them cheaper. So okay, you put this one, you put this town, we guarantee it doesn't have this one, people can come and buy it because you buy the mass product. So these are the type of a thing that the town can get involved in the short-term price, something like that. You know nothing about it. At the same token, thinking about we are going to fix it, if how long going to take, we can have easier timing of getting it. The second thing I have, the town of Burlington, I don't know, 100,000 population, something.
200 and...
In the daytime.
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 100,000,
Yeah.
at night about 24,000.
Yeah, 24,000, yeah, 200
So
for the day.
I'm saying that lots of people have there, which we can use them as a so-called, you can call them technical advisor on any situation. And usually if you have your email based on the people who are living around here, you know what his expertise is. Just ask them question. They don't have to be committed to any length of a time. They don't have to, they only have to, if they like, they can respond to it. And I'm sure people I know, majority of them, the things goes that depends on their experience and their knowledge and the work they do. They give you the answer right away, and then you can discuss it. It doesn't mean you accept it or rejecting it, but those become new idea how to doing it. So using the community as a source of information and guidance for anything happen. And in this environment, email is the best. Yes, a lot of people may not have email, but that's fine. I don't say 100%. It's gradually things happen. Some things I had, if you look at the paying taxes, when you go online paying taxes, they have a charge. They call it, take it, they charge you because ease of payment charge. Ease of payment charge. That is the type of thing I heard. Look at here, any place, any industry, they're going to charge, because in this way, if I pay you online, the money go to the city's account right away from my, they don't need any involvement from any person getting involved in it. And then they're saying they'll hire an outside company to become as a source of this connection and charge because they are using that company to sell, 3%, 4%. This is a type of a thing, it shouldn't happen in Burlington. It's so easy to do it. So these are the type of a thing that there is some of them that I always thought, we can come and get involved and put your expertise and show any company that they want to get money from somebody. They tell them, oh, if you've made me fast and goes directly in my line, you have to pay extra money to pay me fast there and less involved in it. So that's something, this is a type of a thing that in this stage, technology is better, and I do understand that lots of people, elderly people in the state may not have or understanding from the internet. The other thing one can do for those limited ones, you can create training for them. If you don't have it, that's fine. Somebody can say, I mean, some of them will not. If they don't have somebody, students from high school, the high school student, they learn from it. They're talking with their grandparents. So it creates, it may not happen overnight. It may be very gradual, slowly, but I'm saying if you help 5 elderly people to learn how to do it, that's a great job. Sure. It doesn't have to be 100% right there, but the objective has to be there. Could it be those things to be put as part of the city planning, some of the goal? Because if the technology becomes a goal, learning and training of the people living it is a part of it too. Something, all of those things can become a part of the goal. And it doesn't have to be people only in the planning part to become involved and spend time. Advisory group, that's a separate group. These are the ones that the people say, okay, yeah, I'd like to help. You can get some big student that they're good in it. Then you come up with your idea and teach some of the elderly how to do this or that. So those type of things with minimal amount of the work can be done. I'm sure the people in the community are willing. When you have someone who spent 50 years constantly on his life, or some people can spend a few hours a month to help around whenever they have time. So that is my overall thinking, that try to make sure we have a master plan is good. We have something, if you can change comes in, it's fine. And then tries to, every project, look at what does it add to that plan? Or does it improve it? Or do we have to change the plan to make it a goal?
Excellent, thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, thank you.
Barbara?
Well, first of all, I agree with you about those fees. Every time I buy a concert ticket or a plane ticket, I pay a convenience fee. It upsets me. So,
Those are behind it. Yeah, those.
So these are, we've been talking about sort of very lofty goals. I'm going to bring it down to a more immediate need. So if the person, whoever is successful in achieving this position is going to be starting in about 2 weeks. And we'll have to run again next January for election in April. So it's a condensed period of time.
Sure.
And there's a lot to learn. So my question is, what will you do to prepare yourself for this position that will be starting in a couple of weeks?
What I'm thinking is either there is a request in front of the panel that you have to decide upon it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. There is some planning, some requests. So I'm assuming if those are documented somewhere, there is some request coming in front of plan to decide. So if those documentation, I'm sure is available, basically the first thing is to get access to all those documents and read on them completely. And if there is any question in between it, so I'm assuming again that any request comes in from anybody, there are some pros and cons of those things. Somebody may already has sent it again or not, whatever is available. Read those documentation. And again, the same token, the first thing is I have to read the so-called master plan. So without understanding the master plan, and if I have some comment on the master plan, I bring it up. This is the one is here. This is some other addition which I think it may be helpful to be added. But that's a separate piece. Has nothing to do with the short term. So short term, looking at that, reading the master plan, and then looking individual. I don't know how many so-called topic you have for each of the meeting.
It varies greatly.
For example, next meeting.
With the next meeting, well, it's not for a couple of more weeks, so
2 weeks.
our meetings run very long, so we have many topics in each meeting. Often, our meetings start at 7, they often run after 10 at night, so.
Hey,
Not always, Brenda's very efficient, so our meetings have been shorter since Brenda took over.
our last
But-
meeting was
but they are
27
long
pages
meetings.
long, let's
Yeah,
put it that way.
So I couldn't really enumerate, because sometimes, we have meetings sometimes that may have 5 agenda items, and we have meetings that may have 20 agenda items. It's hard to predict.
Let me ask you another question. When you have the meeting, I'm assuming again, the item on the agenda is advanced written, so everybody knows these are the items in the agenda.
Yes, we do get information ahead of time to read,
And the
yes.
second thing, I mean, just like any other, not only you get the topic of it, you get any reasoning behind it. So that topic comes up, there's the documentation. So everybody who comes to the meeting has a time ahead of time to read in detail about the agenda and to have at least their own personal idea about it. And then people comes here, usually you make the decision on the same session or the following session.
Usually, well, for simple items, we might make the decision in the same night. For more complex things, it can go on for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 meetings, because we may be requesting additional information from the applicant or things like that.
So basically, I agree that basically there is no reason when the first comes in, even though how simple it is, decision we make on that one. That first session of anything is just everybody a few minutes talk about it and give their opinion. And even though it's so simple one, the meeting, at the beginning of meeting, some of those things at the end of it is yes or no from the board. They already have read it, they already have their initial appointment, understanding from it, and if they have any question between they have asked, they're coming for the simple one. They can very quickly vote on it. So these becomes, and if there's this under meeting question that they need a lot more research to be done, those are separate piece. And even for those things, so it means the meeting will, even before the meeting, those things, individual panel could write down their own question or the things they need to be done. So the meeting could be just pass those things to whoever's supposed to provide it. These are the questions that's been asked, whoever's pros or cons about it, and then everyone reads it. When they come to the meeting does not have to be 5 hours discussion and hammering. It's not lobbying. I'm not lobbying you, or you're not lobbying me. It's just individual opinion, certain fact. Everybody can read. Everybody has their own thinking. At the end of it, become the. So when you're making the vote, is vote a majority vote or has to be unanimous?
It depends on what's in front of us. Sometimes just a simple majority, and other times there has to be a super majority, which in the case of planning board is 5 people.
5 people. So again, if there's not 5 people, it means it's down. So basically, it's just simple. If there's something is 5 vote, 5 vote doesn't get it, it's gone. There's no need even to bring it back. Short of there is something very, so people have mind. When they're rejecting it, it's rejecting it. There's maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, something has to be changed, but the decision making should not get, rejected, instead of 5, we have 4. So let's make another week, we make it another one. Let's make another week, we make it another one. These are, I can see it for some other cases, that people, they have some other motive, but this one, there's no lobbying. I'm not convincing you to do anything. Just, you can, and that's the other thing that I have, that any communication or any documentation that communicate across the board has to go for all of them. So it means even from the outside, lobbying, pros and cons, any mail comes in, has to go to all members of the board. So everybody hear about all of those at the same time. It's not that somebody from outside get in touch with me. Okay, this is the one I have it. I all of those things. So it gives you more time to think about it. And the rest of the people don't know. So anything comes in, there is a list of the mailing. So anybody wants to get connected, one, they can send to all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying this will make it easier and more open.
Mm-hmm.
So it's open decision making, there is nothing in between it. So that is my thinking as far as That is what I have seen, even even right now today, in our professional, even when you go to the commercial company, it is a lot more money involved those, but even for that one, when it comes to the board member meeting, we confess every single communication. We don't have individual communication to individual member of the board. Any communication goes to all or none.
It does.
That's something.
Correct.
So when you're doing that one, it's all set. Everybody knows about it. So it's a good thing to do.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Spejo.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in applying and coming tonight. Appreciate it. The planning board's a 7-member board, all with different experience, styles, opinions. How do you work in a group setting, in a collaborative setting, and how do you work with others when trying to come to decisions?
No, basically, if you look at here, there's nothing different between the 7-member board of the city or 7-member board of my company. So people have different background. People have different. The one thing is everybody's opinion is correct for that person. And everybody is honest about it. That's a basic assumption, that everybody has value and everybody has to be respected. It doesn't mean that everybody's opinion will be approved. It means that I never expect, if I've come here and I have positive or negative or anything, I make assumption, oh, rest of the people should have same mood I have, or they can take it or leave it. But as far as respecting everyone's opinion is important, and giving enough time to hearing it. And especially when you look at the project, I'm assuming the project has positive and negative. And if it doesn't have any negative evaluation, someone within the group, any project comes in, one has to have cons and plus of it. Somebody has to become devil advocate and bring up all the negative things on the project and send to everybody. Somebody can become responsible to put all the positive one and send to everybody. So I'm saying you need to have both sides or multiple sides of every single project for different reasoning it to comes up. But at the end of it, after decision making, there is one decision, up or down. So that is why it is. That's why there's nothing different in this board or any other board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Ernie, you're up.
Thank you. First, just one comment. You are correct. There are quite a bit of community resources in this town, and on occasion, maybe not enough occasions, this board and other boards have reached out and got some very good surprises. That there was a lot of knowledge out there that we were able to use, and people were willing to contribute it. But my question is, unlike the private sector, where sometimes the boss, the CEO, whoever calls a group of people in and says, I want to do this, and what is your opinion? And you give your opinion, and then he makes the decision. Right or wrong, he makes the decision. It's his decision. Public sector works a different way, and it can be very frustrating sometimes, like your PFAS thing that you just mentioned. So how would you deal with that? I mean, I've been on the planning board for a long time, and that's probably, well, that's actually an understatement too, but that's probably the most thing different than the private sector is trying to deal with the municipal form of decision-making, government, whatever. How would you, tell me how you would approach that, because it appears from what you're saying, what I'm hearing, what you're saying, that you have, you've been in the private sector for a long time, and you seem to be talk very proficiently in what you're doing, but sometimes in the public sector that doesn't matter. So how would you deal with that?
Again, to me, I don't see that much differences between the board of the private or the public sector. Yes, at the final
Someday when
decision
you have
making,
10 hours, we can have
I
a
agree
long
with you.
discussion about that.
I agree with you. The final decision making, if you have the private board, they make decision, but they know at the end of it, decision-making being done, they gave their opinion. They are just like advisory board, not the one in. They bring they're just like the CEO is the one that receive all the advices from everybody else. And then at the end of it, they make a decision. So, but as far as the individual member of the board, bringing in and giving their own honest opinion, in general, this is the case. But even though when you get a private company, there's a lot of the other reason that the people goes in the board for getting certain amount of money, always giving, when you go to, even if even it depends on if the company is the personal or is a public company. So these are other motives get involved in it. But as far as decision making, individual has to bring their own opinion on the subject honestly with their full knowledge and attention. In this one, the decision finalized by number of the up and down vote. On that one, maybe you have one person. Some of them they have more, there are a variety of them. But as far as the board itself is concerned, to be honest about their opinion and technically valid, and they know it is similar. The only difference is the board member and the so-called, if you got the private one, they don't expect if 5 of them say something, 2 says, and the CEO has to accept the 5. No, the CEO can reject all 7 and have his own. And it is known in advance. There's nothing surprising about it. But at the same token, there are some boards that from beginning, even the private one, when they create them, an individual invite to come them, they all know that this board, decision making is within this board, and whatever they say is they go. The CEO has to just follow it. So it depends on the board and the way that the board constitution is being set up for the company, what level of decision making they have. So it could be either one, but as long as the process is known and accepted by everybody, I don't see much of the differences.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. So my question is, we come to meetings like this, and during the week, during the month, you have 2 meetings that you have to attend. During the course of that 2 weeks in between, everything else, there's a lot of time that's involved with other meetings, phone calls, emails to keep the boards going. Both boards, the select board, excuse me, one of these days I'll get it right, and the planning board. So my question to you is the time involvement. Do you have the time to do all this, and how would you manage that?
I have thought about it before applying for it, because my thought was when you get involved in it, it is an unknown amount of time involved in it. It depends on what is going on. So I have thought about it, yes, it is twice a week, twice a month, meeting, maybe 2-3 hours, whatever, more or less, but that's the minimum time. But the rest of it depends on individual topic, which even decision making for yourself, one has to do a lot more learning and investigating. Decision making is not whatever put for me. I have to go and read about it, investigate it, search it to find out. Yes, I understand there is unknown amount of time associated with it, but the same token, my assumption is they are not infinite. Nothing is infinite. So it means it's just you research it based on the known topic to satisfy yourself what to do.
Good.
And in this case, I have thought about it, and I have assumed that at least for the starting point, the first 6 months, I have thought about putting enough time into the board as needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us? We have about 5 minutes left.
They said your board has 7 members, right?
That's correct.
7 members and twice a month meeting, and you have master plan already, so I got those. I'm assuming the master plan is on the Burlington website.
The master plan is actually the newest version of the master plan. This is not online, of course. Is being finished up. So I mean, everything's done. It's just kind of
I'm just
punctuation and that type of
it's
stuff.
like any other document that those type of a thing has to be always what's the latest one out there. It could be next week we update it, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it means something everybody
Sure.
in the city.
Absolutely.
Click on it, okay,
Yep.
what's the master plan? What my plan is 30 years from today?
Yep, absolutely.
So I can, so these are the type of, any documentation for the city, I think it should be right there.
Absolutely.
And
It
that is
it
what-
is, I believe
makes it-
everything is on the government page, and if there isn't, then you can always reach out.
Sure. I start to look at the some from last time, I didn't go through them.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you have any other questions?
No,
Okay.
no, I guess I have enough knowledge from the town. I do my research before coming in, so.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for coming in. As you know, we do have quite a few applicants who have submitted their interest. Should you not, I do encourage you, should you not get chosen, I do encourage you to look at other positions within the community. Town meeting would be a great fit. I mean, this could be a great fit too.
I'm
We just-
hoping you can
We need to
find-
collaborate a little
I'm
bit.
hoping you can find Peter more qualified than me.
I appreciate
So
that.
I understand that you have better understand what you want, you hear me, you hear others. I hope that you find people who are more qualified, so I don't have to come.
We're halfway through the process, but again, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so
and,
much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Back to business. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
For those folks who don't know you at home, could you please introduce
For
yourself?
the record, I'm John Kelly, better known to all of you as Jack Kelly.
And could you tell us why you're seeking reappointment or appointment for this position?
Well, I'm looking to get back involved. I was uninvolved for a while for reasons of my wife needed to be cared for, so I left at that time. But where there is an opening, I think that I can help at that point. We've got, I think, a couple of things we're facing here in the planning board. We're getting busier because of not only the biomedical, but the change in the MBTA community rules, which is going to be real tricky. Many of the aspects of that are very unclear and vague, and probably going to be lawsuits, that type thing. And so we're going to have to pay attention to case law and things like that, which I'm familiar. I know how to read case law and search the cases. I think I have the experience which will be helpful. We're a little thin in the planning department. We've got one new person in there, Caleb, and then another new one coming, and there is the potential of the planning director winning her election and leaving. So I think that having newbies that require a lot of hand-holding is a burden on staff, and experienced folks like myself can not be a burden and can actually turn into be a help of some kind. So I figure I fit the criteria in that respect.
Great, thank you. Nick?
Thank you. Jack, I've been asking a two-part question. 'Cause as you know, planning has the dual purpose of dealing with the now and looking at the future. So what I want to ask is, from your perspective, and maybe beyond just the MBTA ruling that's coming through, what do you see as the most, as an immediate need?
Well, the now is dictated by the applicants. The future is what the planning board should be trying to consider when they consider the now and when they deal with looking ahead 10, 20, 30 years. You do the best you can. So what's most important? The future. Because we don't control the now. The applicant does. We have to respond to what comes before the board. I don't know if that's a sense of your question.
No. So the whole question is, what do you see as the most immediate need of the community as it pertains to the planning board? And then long-term, how do you measure success?
I think the need is, when you look over the recent years, the burden, the quantity of applications coming before the board and the staff has interfered with their ability to do more long-range planning. With the bringing in of an additional position should help that. Their position will be to, as I understand it, go out and inspect to make sure that the conditions that the planning board has put into a site plan or a permit are actually being followed. You know, things like landscaping and plantings, which is outside what the building inspector would do. The building inspector is looking for code dimensions and things like that. So to be able to enforce these approvals, it's a combined effort of this new position and the building department. I think that's important. To say only one thing is important is probably too simplistic, because each thing that comes before the board has its own uniqueness based upon its neighborhood, its location, how it is fitting with the future plans of the community. So I think there's no single answer to that. You have to answer that on a case-by-case basis.
Sure. So then, how do you measure success?
Short-term or long-term?
I guess if the short term is dictated by the applicants, then long term.
Well, ask me in 20 years. How do I define success? I think that the first time I was on the planning board, it was more than 20 years ago. I think the professionalism of the planning board has been a success. When I first joined, we just had a clerk, was Phyllis. But when I was on the board, we hired the first professional planner, which was Colette Meunier. And when she left, she was the perfect first planner. The next planner was Terry. If she had been the first planner, she would have turned the town upside down. But she was the perfect second planner, very strong person, very bright lady. And then we brought in Kristen, who is a professional. She's very much up with her peers in the planning community. I think she was one of the directors or president of one of the local affiliations. So her contacts, getting us a big jump on the 5G and things like that, which saved us a lot of headaches. So making the board's staff more professional, I think, was the biggest success I've seen in my tenure.
Thank you.
Barbara, your turn. Okay, so the person who gets this seat, as you are aware, I think, will be starting in just a little over 2 weeks. So it's a very compressed
That's the meeting of the
time.
18th?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a very compressed time period. So my question is, bless you,
Thank you.
what will you do to prepare yourself to hit the ground running in just a little over 2 weeks?
I did watch the last meeting. I do understand that unless there is a lack of a quorum, I can't vote on things that have had more than 2 meetings. However, if something has had 1 meeting, I believe I am eligible to watch those, or is that only for someone who was a member of the board?
I think you had to be a member. I think we ran into that
You
situation.
did? Okay.
I don't really
So
know.
I can't,
But beyond that next meeting, even, what are you going to do to prepare yourself so that you're ready to hit the ground running?
well, to the extent staff has the time to help me, I would ask them to fill me in. I would look to get a new set of the bylaws, because mine are 3 years old. I would ask staff and you folks, what is it you think I need? And that's certainly what I would do, because I do not like to go to meetings half prepared. That's not the way I operate.
I know that about you, Jack. Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. Jack, hi, Jack. I have a two-part question. You've had a long and distinguished experience with our town government. My quick math is over about 53 years. The two-part question is, what are you most proud of during your service to Burlington, and what's something that you wish you could have done different, or an issue you could have pushed harder on, or something you would have done differently?
What would I have done differently? Probably nothing.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to speak my mind.
Sure.
Whenever I want to. I speak up. I'm not bashful.
And what are you most proud of in your over 50 years of service?
Being active, getting involved in town. I was one of the original town meeting members when we went to that form of government. I'm glad that we still have that form of government. I think it is the appropriate form of government for Burlington because as long as we have people willing to serve, and we seem to be able to do that. We seem to have enough dedicated town meeting members to conduct the town's business. It's a legislative body. They create the laws. We have to follow them and enforce them. They pass the budget. We have to operate within the budget that they give us. So I think it is the foundation of our town. Many of them don't have the time to do what some of us do and have done. I'm available to devote the time that I had in the past now that I couldn't for the past few years, which is why I left the board.
And you touched on a little bit in Nick's, your answer to Nick when you said you helped make the board, the staff more professional, which is a good one too.
Yeah, I think that, well, even if we hadn't done it back then, we would have had to do it. There was no way around it. It just had to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Ernie?
Okay, sure. First, in the interest of full disclosure, the only reason I'm here is because I got a call from Jack Kelly in 1989.
Good thing you answered the phone, huh?
I may have been here other than that, but I would have been surprised because I said, what is a planning board? So I've gone through this process. The question I've been asking everybody, Jack, and I'll ask you also, is how do you deal with the frustration of I guess, the slow way and sometimes the I don't know what the word is. How do you deal with the frustration in the municipal world as opposed to, you've worked in the private sector for a long time too?
Well, in the private sector, much of the work I have done in the past few years is with the probate courts. You
No,
think
I
something
mean,
is
even-
slow and
even-
impossible
no,
to deal with,
no,
that's the
okay.
probate court.
Not speaking to your work with the courts, but in your previous profession, medical equipment, whatever.
Well, in my previous medical sales you talked about, I dealt with professionals. My primary contact was neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, cardiac surgeons, people like that.
There was
And-
usually one person that made the decision, right? But now-
In sales, you find the decision maker, otherwise you're wasting everyone's time. Yeah.
As opposed to the municipal. How
Well,
do you deal with that?
as
How would you?
As Churchill has said that, democracy, and this is one of the worst types of government except for all the rest of them. We just have to understand that our government, which involves many, many people, and many people making decisions, and many people having different decisions and opposing decisions, that's why it works. So you either see it as a positive or a negative, and I see it as a positive.
Short, quick, right answer, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Hey, Jack. The question I've been asking is, kind of irrelevant. We already know what you've done in the past on this, on the boards and stuff like that, but I'm asking the same question to everybody. Time commitment. You and I both know the answer, everyone here knows the answer. It's the people that are going to watch this tape later on that may not know the answer. So the amount of time that's involved, you get 2 meetings in a month, you've got a number of phone calls, a number of emails during the week.
Committee meetings.
Subcommittee meetings, the whole 9 yards. So that's my question. How do you plan on committing?
Well, I am semi-retired. I just set my money in to updo my license for the BBO, the Board of Bar Overseers, so I intend to keep my attorney's license active, but I have not yet decided what I'm going to actually do. I had been involved in primarily mental health, but I view that as something part-time. I'm not going to do what some attorneys put in 60, 80 hours a week. I've never done that, never believed in it. It's just not who I am. As far as the time commitment, I think that my past record shows that, I attended almost every meeting for umpteen years. It's in my calendar, it's scheduled well ahead of time, and I just don't do other things. I've been to subcommittee meetings, and I spend time outside them. The 2 meetings a month is just a small portion of what we do. And if anyone thinks that's all you need to do, they better figure something different, because that's probably a quarter or a third of the time you need to spend in order to be properly prepared for those 2 meetings a month.
Yep.
You've got to stay up to the changes in the bylaws, stay up to the changes in the state, the court cases which affect how we interpret the bylaws. But that's something I enjoy doing, so I always want to be prepared for a meeting, always.
Thank you.
Great. As you know, we have several applicants. If you were not to be chosen for the appointed position, would you run for election in April?
If I'm not chosen?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It depends upon who you've got and how good a job they're doing. If someone's there and doing a good job, I certainly wouldn't want to chase them away.
I think competition is good. I think
It is, but I'm the town meeting member. If I'm not chosen, I remain a town meeting member.
Oh, agreed.
And that's, I consider an important functional part. Why would I be jumping into the planning board at this time? Because I think my experience would have a shorter learning curve. You've already got 1 new member. And given the staff situation, I think someone who needs hand-holding without any experience is probably not in the interest of the functioning of the board in what appears to be an upcoming very busy time.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any questions for any of us?
What are you doing here on a beautiful night? It's a good question.
I think you already answered that when you talked about the time commitment to being on the planning board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just 2 meetings a month.
No, that's for sure.
No, it has never been. I can remember that it was downstairs, in the meeting room. We're pointing the clock, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning
Oh
or
my
something.
goodness.
We were here.
We're never doing that again.
No.
With that old window air conditioner in there.
Oh, yeah.
Had to turn it off because you couldn't hear people.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for coming in. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And hope you have a great evening.
Hey, we'll do the same, go home to my air conditioning. It's actually cooled down a little bit.
Has it?
Outside, has it?
Yeah. So I may be able to turn the air conditioning off tonight. Thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye, thanks, Jack.
So good evening, Mr. Prajapati. I'm just going to kind of go through, I know that you've met some of the planning staff beforehand, but just as a review, and then we'll introduce you to some of the select board members as well. So, as a reminder, my name is Brenda Rappaport. I'm the chair of the planning board.
Oh, sorry.
Your kind sir.
Yes, Nick Priest, Chair of the Select Board.
Great.
Ernie Covino, planning board member. How are you?
His turn. Mike?
No,
Barbara
no,
Lewin,
I'm
planning
just
board
reminding.
member.
Mike Espejo, Select Board.
Hello.
Joe
Hi.
Morandi, Select Board.
Hi, nice to meet you.
All night, they've had a little confusion on what board they sit on, so I was just trying to remind them.
We have Planning Board on the mind.
Planning board and select board, yes, okay.
So if you would kindly just kind of introduce yourself, state your name for the folks at home who are watching, and tell us a little bit about why you're seeking appointment for the planning board position.
Sure, so my name is Sunil Prajapati. I moved in Burlington, the first time was in 1993. I lived in Beacon Village at that time, and then since then I've been like living here on and off, but mostly like out of I will say almost 30 years. I've lived in Burlington more than 20 years, and I've seen town grow, lot of changes in the town, and then a lot of things have remained the same, a lot of things have changed. So I've observed the growth of the town, the development, and then areas that needs development, but we are not able to do much, like say town center, right? Our town center, and lot of times, a lot of committees came and went, but nothing much has happened. So that's like one thing I saw that. So the reason why I want to join planning board, right, is there are more than 100 reasons, and it will be difficult to go through everything, right? But the primary reasons are to see that the development is going well. Right, we are serving our community very well. We are, doing the job growth. We are creating more affordable housing, more equitable. Right, we are following the laws and bylaws properly, and not creating hindrance to people's lives, but supporting them in growing their, in fulfilling their housing requirement, their building requirement, parking requirements, everything that we want to do. Right, we want to do it in a very, very good, consistent manner. We want to support public transportation. We want to, our population is aging. We want to support aging generation. There are many other reasons, that really supports about serving the community. One other reason that I came across personally, and I would never be here unless if I had to go through all this situation, right? And I won't go into too much details on that, but I applied for a housing permit. It was approved, and then during the approval process and throughout the construction process, I heard many things which I will not go into too much details, but those are considered as a racial discrimination. The things that are spoken on my face, things that have happened, and the things I'm trying to really sort out, and then the pushback I'm getting, right? So one thing I've noticed during all this, I've been to town offices hundreds of times, and I've noticed that there is very little diversity in the town. And there could be many reasons for that, many reasons, and I won't go into all them. Maybe town doesn't want diversity, or a lot of other reasons which I cannot do anything about it. But from my side, one reason could I think of is like nobody wants to run, nobody wants to come and work for the town. And spend their time, personal time, without getting paid for things that really matters to our community. So I want to represent myself, right? I know a lot of, I'm originally from India. I know a lot of people from India, China, other part of the world have moved here. And their requirements, their family structures are very different, which one thing I have noticed is very difficult for the building inspector to understand that why am I putting more bathrooms in my house, because we live in a 4-generation family. We have different way of living together than a lot of times you see in different families. So I feel like there is a cultural gap, and if I join the board, if I get more active with the town, then I can help bridge the gaps. I can promote some awareness. So those are like, there's one good reason I thought like let me join the board and represent the community from that perspective also, and help them bring the awareness on the cultural issues and other things that may be difficult to understand, or That thing, I mean, one thing I can say, if we say that our country is free from racism, then we are kidding ourselves. And I believed that for many years, but then I came across situation, I came across statements spoken on my face that made me realize that that is not the way it is. And then I tried to raise awareness on that. I complained about it and it went nowhere. People say we take things seriously, but nobody's taking things seriously, nobody's investigating anything, and there is nothing done about it. And that is not the purpose of this meeting, but I see what is going on. I observed those things, and I feel like the best way to really, see that those kind of things don't happen, right, is to work with the town, be part of the town, and bring those awareness. So that's just some of the things, yeah.
Great.
There could be more, but those are some of the primary things, yeah.
Thank you. Nick?
Thank you. So I've been asking all the candidates the same question. It's a two-part question. Because I'm sure as you become aware, the facets of the planning board are, for short-term goals, long-term goals, right? And you have a lot that you answered in your question, and you've also touched upon some stuff too, but in terms of an immediate need that you see that the planning board can address, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, as well as long-term, how you measure success.
So in terms of the immediate things, right, there are many, like, as I started getting more involved, I see there are a lot of development going on, and we need to address them in a very careful, planned way. Like, other day I was here, and there is like another biotech office coming in the town, and we are trying to work out, what kind of parking arrangements they need. So that's just one example. There are many other things in our town from the planning perspective, we need them. Like, new smoke shop coming in the town, right? Are those allowed by the bylaws? Are we going to modify the bylaws? What do the town residents say about it, right? I mean, do they really want a smoke shop right next to an ice cream shop where a lot of kids congregate, even my kids too, my family kids too. So I understand those challenges on those areas, right? And at the same time, businesses have to grow. It's not like neighboring towns don't have them, right? Billerica has them, Lexington has them, Woburn has them. So, what is the right, how do we find the right balance? So those are like some of the immediate short-term needs, very short-term needs. There could be more short-term needs, like, we want to make sure there is a good public transport within the town in ongoing basis. I know that there is a pushback from MBTA to shut down one of the express bus, right? And I myself have used that bus for more than 10 years when the 19.5 was they allowed the parking there. And I see that parking is a problem, how do we, allow people to park so they can do park and ride or those kind of things, right? How do we like really support that transportation so bus has enough ridership, the last mile connectivity. Right, so there is a transportation problem. Housing problem, I see a big problem. I see big problem, specifically the new migrants coming in. Housing is super expensive in our state. It's extremely expensive. Affordable housing is a big problem. And we all need to work towards that to make it available, more of that, not just in our town, but it's a state level problem. It is a bigger problem. But that's something we need to work on it. There are many more things I can think of in immediate, but let's discuss a little bit about the long term. The long term things, some of the things we do from the planning perspective is PDDs, Plan Developed Districts, right? I've lived in this town many times. There was no Third Avenue. There was no that Burlington, next to the Burlington Mall, right, where the Charles River office is. There was like a whole different setup there, and now it's a very different thing. So we are doing it as a planned approach, taking very, very systematic planned approach for those. We call it PDD here, or that can be like more like a special zone, special economic zone or something. So we need to, look into that. So it's like a more comprehensive development, more like people can walk to work. There is like, less people have to get in the bus and car and everything, like more like a, more cohesive society there. More facilities available to the town residents, right? I know there is a DPW has problem with the water, right? So we need to, we need to support those issues and work with them on making sure it's solved properly. Maybe it's an MWRA or other ways. Maybe that's not within the planning's domain, but it is still some issue that is touching the town. So from overall, from the town planning perspective, those are some of the issues we really need to address very well. And there are pros and cons. We can subscribe to MWRA or we build like another $20 million plant and keep operating that. So there are many things to go into that, discussion. It's not an easy problem to solve. So that's already solved. I think, there is one stand taken, but eventually it will come up again, something like that, right? And we'll have to decide what we want to do with those facilities. So our public facilities need renovation time to time, right? We need to address them in long-term basis. Our schools may need completely rebuilding, and there is definitely a school board and other agencies within the town, but the planning works with everyone. Every brick that's getting laid in the town, we kind of become aware of it in one way or the other in some sense, right? So we work with all of them in the planning department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara.
Hi. So the person who is successful and gets this position, as I think you're aware, is going to be starting very soon, in a little over 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and will be serving in that position through to next April. So starting in next January, February, this person would be expected to run
Yes.
for election. So it's a pretty condensed timeline. So my question for you is, what will you do to prepare yourself for this very immediate position that you would be filling in 2 weeks' time and in the months to come? What will you do to prepare yourself?
Yes. So a great question. Thank you for that. So I'll just touch base on today's back and forth, right? I know you sent me an email and somehow I just did not get it until Christine sent me. So we figured that out. I was totally busy with other thing and I managed to squeeze in, just went home and changed clothes and came here. But I was able to squeeze that. So I have availability. Good news is that I have availability in terms of time. In terms of coming up to speed on the planning board, I want to understand our rules and regulation more. So I will be spending time on reading it. I have read through our bylaws practically in all detail because of the, I've been through ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeal, twice. And during that process, I had to understand everything myself because I never had an attorney to do that. I read our building code thoroughly, not only our building code. I had to read 780 CMR completely because a lot of things that are like brought to my attention are not really what is there. And when I push back, it comes back because, it's a whole different thing. I don't go into it, but that's like another thing, it matters to us a lot, 780 CMR. Commercial side, I don't know a lot, but that's something I would like to, come up to speed on those things. It's a different thing. 527 CMR, I know that pretty well in detail. I've read through it almost like end to end, just like 780 CMR, just like all our bylaws, and all other like fire department's document. I know it from beginning to end on what it is written there. I'm pretty familiar with our laws and bylaws and how we work. And if there are any suggestion on what brings me up to speed better, right? I feel pretty good about coming up to speed. I know a lot of things because of my close association over the last 5 years, but I will be open to that. If there are some things I can do that can make me a more, effective board member, I would like to look into those things. Right? And that is for the immediate next 2 weeks, right? If I am starting like 2 weeks from now. In terms of my time commitment, I have availability. It won't be a problem. Either it's a Zoom call or coming in person. I know the requirement right now is twice a month, right?
Twice a month, yes.
Twice a month, right? Every Thursday, right? Every second and fourth Thursday, yes.
First
so that's,
and third Thursday.
Oh, first and third, okay. So yeah, so that is really not a problem, in terms of availability. And there is more, right? I will be happy to get involved. I live just a short walk from the town center.
Oh.
Can easily come and work on things. And I would love to. I feel like, we can do a lot better. We can like really redevelop our downtown, right? Billerica has done it, right? Lexington is doing it. I mean, as I drive by there is just a lot of work going on. They are going to put high-rise on both sides of the street, the town common, right? They are allowing higher FSI, floor space index, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
thought they were just expanding the sidewalks.
Oh, yeah, no, they are practically rebuilding the sidewalk. The bricks were like all, broken out. But along with that, the FSI is going up, right? So it's not going to be like a Boston downtown, obviously. Never be, and we don't want it. But at the same time, 3 story is not a big deal, right? So, and they are going to go more than that in the town, in the main avenue. So it becomes more like transit-oriented development, right? More people can, live there and walk to shops and buses and all those things, right? So something like that, that's one area I would like to really see Burlington doing better than what we have. And we definitely should, work with, like, say, Mass Highway, so they can fix the intersections here. I know we work with a lot of agencies. Like, I just say I drive by this Cambridge Street every day, and there is one do not enter sign and no left turn sign. That's like a legacy of the building 19 and a half. That's all gone, but that sign will be always there. I know that it's not going to go away unless somebody do it, and it will be me. I will, as a planning board, I will have a more influence to work with the Mass Department of Highway to get rid of that sign. It's just confusing. At the least, it can be hazardous, right? So there are just some small things, right? Just small things that I can see those things. And there can be big things that I would like to work with everyone to promote, better things here. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in joining us this evening. My question is about working together. Our planning board is a 7-member board, all different experiences and preferences and styles. How do you work in a collaborative effort, in a group effort, and how do you see yourself fitting in with a group when you're trying to come to a common goal and make a common decision?
Yes, so it is very important to work everyone in a cohesive way, but it is also a democracy where you have right to express your own opinion. So my decision making style, it is in my application, is definitely gather all the information, right? You have to have information, collect all the information so you can make a good decision, informed decision. Don't make a decision just for the sake of making it, right? Don't exercise your power just for the sake of exercising the power. Right, so really work with collaborative manner on understanding, like, really why we are doing it, what are we trying to achieve here. Look at the big picture, what is the goal here, what is our intention, what are we trying to accomplish here, and work towards those things. So that's a great question. I want to be very honest. It doesn't mean that I will say yes to everything. It's not really required in a democracy, in a good functional democracy. But at the same time, I won't be opposing something just for the sake of opposing it. It's not, that also is a very wrong thing to do. Approving something just for the sake of approving or opposing something just for the sake of opposing, it doesn't make sense. So you get all the details, right? You ask questions, right? So you get more details, right? You ask questions to your fellow board members, or you ask questions to the applicants, or other departments, right? So gather more details, and then promote your ideas. If you have some better ideas, like on making things better, right? Promote your ideas by collaborating with other people. Right, that there is also human factor. We all have our own way of working things, so we have to work very carefully on those human factors. So great ideas get promoted, and so we move forward in the right direction, right? So that's like, and I will be really again open to suggestion on what I can do better. So we work as a team, but at the same time we don't become just like all yes-sayer or nay-sayer kind of thing, right? Not, won't be like, I'll be probably coming as an independent, if we just look at from the political perspective. So we know what goes on Capitol Hill, right? It's very divided on a party line. People just say yes because they believe in certain ways, no because they believe in certain ways, like at the party level. Very few times you see people crossing across the party and saying that, no, this is the right thing to do. We have seen a lot of major issues at the political level in the central, in our federal government, and I observe those very closely. And I feel like I will be working the same way here in a democratically elected board, where we agree where it makes sense to agree, or if at times there is a disagreement, it may happen there, and those are not a bad thing in a democracy, having a disagreement. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Raymond?
Thank you. The same question I've asked the other applicants is, you've been working in the private sector for a long time, I assume. in the municipal side is a little different, and it can be very frustrating. Even though you have the right thing and you're trying to do the right thing, it can take a long, 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 long time. If it ever happens, how would you deal with that? How do you know what I mean? Well, you've
No,
been going
I-
through a lot of it yourself. I
Totally
think.
agree,
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
So, and yes, I work in a private sector, but at least 20% of my time had been having government as my customer. So I've been to my very first customer when I started, when I was just like 23-year-old. My customer was City of Boston. Yes. Okay. And you know how difficult it is to work with City of Boston, right? I will go into, yes, it was very difficult. I'm technology world. Good old days, right? It was like it was like made it very clear to me, don't touch this. And it means don't touch this, right? It's very clear, right? It's not the way private sector works. They want to, improve efficiency in a very different ways. They are always looking for bigger, better, faster, cheaper for their profitability, customer service. Government sector has a different mindset on that, but that doesn't mean, one is better than other, or, you can't work with one or other. I've traveled and worked with like City of Wisconsin for implementing their pension plan. Right, so I work on technology side and sell them technology or solutions, and they implement them. And yes, one thing I can say observed is like their way of allocating funds, time it takes to from proposal to actual execution, everything is longer. Everything is longer, more convoluted, more approval process, more sign-off process. But it's workable, it works, system works, and there has to be more oversight because it's public money that is being spent. So there has to be more oversight on all those things. So working with government I work with government. I have not worked as a government myself, but I cannot feel it like very different or isolated from that, when I work so closely with the government, and being part of the government will not be difficult. Being part of the private sector at a senior level, managing employees and deliverables and all those things, so I know the stress that is involved, or organization skill you need to bring on the table, so you are on track of your project, from the cost perspective, from deliverable perspective, time perspective, all those things, right? So I understand those things very well, and I think I'll be able to bring good value to that in working in government. And yes, I have learned to be very patient. It took me 5 years to, sorry about that, 5 years to, and not yet done, I don't know how long it's going to take. And I'm not giving it up. A lot of times people made me offer, we will buy your house and you leave and someone else will take care of it. But I said, no, I'm not going to give up. Let me get all the approval and then you buy my house. Yep. But I'm persistent on that. I like town to be better in terms of the experience that I've been through. I think we have room for improvement, and I would like to promote those things slowly as I be part of member. I know that the changes takes time to work. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it doesn't also have to take 10 years or 20 years. So it will be a process that I will carefully work with everyone to move forward. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Hi, how are you? So the planning board meets the first and third Thursday of every month, but in between that, there's a lot of subcommittee meetings and a lot of emails, and is that something that you could explain to us how you would go ahead and take care of some of the things that we would need to take care of besides just a general meeting that we go to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, right? So is there is there some more details on that, like how many hours of commitment are we talking here, like roughly?
Each member has each member of the planning board has a subcommittee that they represent.
Okay.
So it could be recreation, it could be housing, so on and so forth. So,
Okay.
but in addition to that, I think it's not uncommon to receive, a call from, a resident or somebody about another matter, or running into the grocery store and somebody's going to stop you and say, what's going on with this?
Yes.
That happens pretty much every time.
So it happens to you a lot, right?
Quite
Yeah.
quite
Okay.
frequently.
No, yeah, I know.
So, and I say it all the time, being a member of, the planning board's a labor of love because you have to be fully committed. So to Joe's point, there's the two standard meetings, but that's, maybe a third of what the
Yes.
true commitment actually holds.
And you all work from like that town, you work from your personal email address, or everyone gets like their burlington.org email, or is there like any requirement in?
I think you guys have Burlington.
Most
But
of
it's
us
not a
use-
requirement. So I
most
mean,
of us
we
use-
can work from emails from any email, right?
And
Okay.
you can always create a new one. I mean,
And
the
the
email's the
email.
easiest part of.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but getting the email or making sure, you respond email in a timely manner. So I was just asking because I get,
Yeah, you got a personal email from me, and I think that's probably why it ended up in your spam folder. or
it might have
something
gone
like that.
there. I was just thinking that, okay, no, that's what I'm thinking. So let me answer that in detail, right? So first of all, and I know you've been to our function, sometimes Indian people, there is an Indian association here. And I believe I've seen you there in one of our events, and I wanted to have a conversation with you. So you are right, it happens, right? And I really wanted to have a conversation with you about downtown. At that time, I wasn't so neck deep into my housing problem. But I always have this interest, like why our downtown is the way it is. Like nothing has changed in like 30 years practically, or very little, Yes, 60. Okay, so it goes back. Okay, I mean I moved here when I was like 20-year-old, and I've seen like the same strip mall, same, and there is a lot of potential there, right, for a change.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
Unless an owner comes in front of us to say that they want to change their property, we can't make them change
We
their
can't
property.
order. Yes.
Things
No.
could be,
That brings you back to the frustration that Ernie talked about.
Yes. No, we can incentivize, right? We can like incentivize that, hey, if you do certain things,
Yeah,
it
we
can.
have
we could talk about this for a very long period of
That's
time.
and that, I look forward to that. So those are the discussions I would
back
like to
to
have.
Joe's question.
So that is the kind of discussion I like to go in. So I will have time for that. I love my town. I want this town to be a better community, and it requires efforts from the town resident. And I am willing to put my efforts, okay? And it means I will be available. Okay, I'll be reachable, I am approachable. I am not a hard-nosed guy that take, certain stand and work through that. I am very flexible, right? I want to see that, we grow, our community grows, our problems get solved. And sometimes, you solve one problem and 10 new problems gets created, and then you have to solve those, things happens those ways. So we have to work on those. That's the nature of life. And that requires effort from the community. So in my application, I've said that, we are a home rule state, right? Our state is not, it's not like some of the foreign countries I've been to, or even the country I come from, where the centralized planning takes priority over state level, and state takes priority over local level, and it's very different level of bureaucracy and different level of planning. It's like, why is there a railroad going from my backyard, but you have no say on that, because it's the state government deciding or central government deciding that, right? Here, nobody can just lay a railroad here, right? It comes to the town. The town decides those things, and that requires efforts, and I am available not just for those 2 meetings, but there are extra meetings. One committee I would love to work on, I can say from the beginning, if there is a vacancy on that, is the transportation committee, because I feel really sad that 354 is going away, right? Or I don't know if that is the case, or it's going away or not. So that's like one area I would like to focus my efforts on. If there are other areas, where I can work, I would like to work on that. And I know a lot of those transportation are used by immigrants, that they don't have the buses, cars, and or driving license and other things, right? So I want to work on that. I don't go personally too much into who is a legal immigrant, who is not a legal immigrant, but I feel that person living in this country, if he is unemployed, it's a loss to the country, and it's loss to the person and everyone. So I promote from those perspectives. As a town officer, if you have certain stand, I will definitely work on those things. But I definitely want to promote that there is affordable public transport in the town, there is affordable housing in the town, and at the same time, town has like good value for the houses. The people invest there, people buy their houses. They want to see that their houses are appreciated, and there is good value for that. But all those things, to do all those things, right? The reason I'm saying is that yes, I will be available, and definitely look forward to that. Yeah, definitely look forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us? And if you think of something, you can always email
No, I haven't like, yeah, that's great, I can email you that. I haven't like really fully absorbed the election process here. So you touch on that, like election process that's going to start in 6 months. And I would like to participate on that. So election is for how long? Like if you get elected,
5 years.
5 years, so you,
On the planning board.
on the planning board.
Actually, though, this.
Oh, yes,
little-
no,
This
no,
would just
right.
be to complete the
Right.
remainder of the
Yep.
term of the person who would be.
This seat is to fill the seat of someone who has left the board early. So
Yeah, but
this seat is this particular seat, one would have to run for. If you ran for this seat again, it would be for 1 year. Then, who else?
Wasn't Paul up for election this year?
Paul's up
Oh,
for
Paul was
election,
up for
yeah.
election.
So
Okay,
would-
so
in this
we-
case, it would be
You could
5.
run, so you,
It would be 5.
if you ran.
It would be 5 years.
April and won, it would be a 5-year term, unless the other planning board member who has only 1 year left decided to run for the 5-year seat. That could happen.
Well, then they'd both be running.
Right, so
Right.
there's going to be 2 seats up for reelection in April, a 1-year seat and a 5-year seat.
Okay,
And people can run for either.
okay, got it, got
And
it.
other people that aren't on the board can run for either as well.
Right. No, that's, yeah, got it, right.
So the normal term is 5 years,
Yeah.
but because we have one seat
Right.
that only has 1 year left on it.
Oh, I see. So it's a rotating basis. So every,
We've had a lot of turnover, so it got a
got
little
it, got it.
confusing.
So probably every year there is a planning board election every year,
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
it
Every
may,
year there's
but
either
it's not for
one or
all
2.
7 members,
Yes.
right? Yes,
Right.
got it. Yeah, no, so I will have, I will be interested in working with the town for a long time, right? So investment you make on me in bringing me up to speed or training will pay back, right? If I get elected or something.
Sure.
Yes, we'll be in
So
touch.
I'm not here just for a transition period, or I'm not coming here for any personal agenda or other thing, except like, we all have a purpose, and I'm coming here with a purpose, a very well-defined purpose.
Great.
But that's all question I have right now.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just have one last question, and then, and we'll let you go home and enjoy the rest of your evening. Should you not be appointed for this position, because there are other folks that are interested here, of course, would you still run for election in April?
I may run for like a different election, or I may run for the planning board. I have to think on that. I want to get more association, right? So one thing I plan to do is like come and participate in the meeting as a town resident, right? And maybe voice my concerns or something. But that's
To be determined, sounds like.
TBD kind of question. Yes, yeah, no.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you thank you for coming in this evening.
Yes, thank you for coming so last minute. I know there was a communication difficulty
Yes.
between us, and I appreciate you coming in without much notice.
Thank you so much. I'm glad it worked out. Yeah, I will check my emails. I will do that.
Thank you.
Have a good
Glad it
evening.
worked out. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Do we need to adjourn, or we're good? We could just say bye, folks?
Yeah, let me say goodbye, folks.
All right. Have a good evening, folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank